The city of Atlanta is heating up.
Goodbye, Silicon Valley, and hello, Atlanta.
The fintech and payments industry, it's continued to explode. The other piece is the creative industry.
As newcomers flood into North Georgia, many are choosing to live near this.
The BeltLine is one of the largest urban redevelopment projects underway in the United States.
Housing prices along the BeltLine's path have crept upward in recent years, most notably on Atlanta's south, west, and southwest sides.
What we've seen is roughly an $8 billion private investment that has followed the BeltLine. So you're talking about 11-to-1 return on public investment.
I saw the value of a loop that could connect poor and affluent communities. Little did I know that other people had different plans.
This is a story of what could have been, and to some degree, a call to other cities to not repeat some of the same mistakes.
What role did this path play in shaping modern Atlanta? And how is the city making more space for millions of inbound workers? Atlanta is a leading city in what scholars call the New South.
There is roughly 500,000 citizens within the city of Atlanta. It's a really rich place to find talent, innovation, and research here. The whole region benefits from that.
Growth in the metro has really outpaced the city's growth. From 2000 to 2020, we've gone from about 4 million people to about 6 million. It's spread out over 29 counties. That has taxed the region kind of environmentally because we don't have a mass transit system that covers that whole metropolitan area.
We're starting to see more people transition to the edges of the city. Not everyone can afford to stay in the city proper limits.
I think there are a confluence of things that have caused that growth. It being in the media, whether it be through hip hop or in popular culture, has also attracted many people to the city.
With this groundwork in place, Atlanta built up a civilian labor force of around 3.2 million people. Huge names like UPS, Coca-Cola, the CDC, the Home Depot, and Delta Airlines have headquarters in the area.
So Atlanta is just winning because of that diversity of corporations that are locating here.
Experts believe that Metro Atlanta's population will continue to climb.
If you believe the reports, we expect that the Atlanta region is going to add almost another 3 million people to the area. And we believe that the BeltLine has a role to play from a density perspective in being able to receive that new population.
The BeltLine is a massive community space for walkers and people on wheels.
We are essentially repurposing a mostly abandoned railroad to create this 22-mile loop literally in the city of Atlanta.
So basically it'll connect all these neighborhoods that haven't really been connected by foot before. We use it in a practical sense. We use it to jog and, to come out and get some air.
It was the idea of a graduate student at Georgia Tech named Ryan Gravel. There are miles and miles of multi-use trails that are complete. There are many parks that have been constructed across the BeltLine.
And what we have seen is extraordinary growth coming alongside the BeltLine, but also the creativity that comes along with it. It's an extraordinary asset here, and we are just finishing the funding for the full 22-mile loop, which means now it can be finished and built out.
The BeltLine is a public-private partnership. In this arrangement, the government provides funding and benefits to businesses that invest in the project.
What we're trying to do is create what I describe as whole communities. And so this means that you'll be able to access a job, housing, a grocery store, medical facilities, educational facilities, all in specific geographic areas where you don't have to get in a car.
The group behind the BeltLine hopes to connect the loop to the MARTA system and also build miles of safe streets in its path. The project is expected to be complete by 2030. Huge swaths of the BeltLine are still in construction, but the project has already left its mark on the city.
I think it was a great idea in terms of connecting neighborhoods.
I saw the value of a loop that could connect poor and affluent communities and really create a more inclusive city. Little did I know that other people had different plans.
Just As the BeltLine was being talked about and written about in 2003 and 2004, single-family home values were going up a lot right near the BeltLine. A lot of money was made just by people holding on to vacant homes.
And as a result, there has been a significant amount of gentrification.
We've roughly have put about $700 million into the BeltLine to date. What we've seen is roughly an $8 billion private investment that has followed the BeltLine. So you're talking about 11-to-1 return on public investment. And so that has caused a number of good things and also a number of pressures within the city of Atlanta.
Here's one example.
We're investing in Atlanta. We're growing in Georgia.
Microsoft is building a 90-acre campus on the west side of Atlanta.
It's actually going to be very close to a MARTA station and very close to the west side trail of the BeltLine. We secured a 31-acre site, literally stone's throw away from where the new Microsoft campus will be. That land will be in public hands, and then we can curate something that really makes sense for that legacy community.
You know, when you, for example, are a company like a Microsoft, for example, that is bringing in, at a minimum, jobs that pay over six figures, but yet, you know, the median income for a black family in this city is a little over $22,000 a year, then there's a huge disconnect in whether these families will be able to compete for these jobs.
Nathaniel Smith was initially a part of the team that planned the BeltLine, but he parted ways with the project.
I felt that the BeltLine was moving in the wrong direction. And both Ryan and I, we both resigned, and we decided to pen a letter that really spoke to the inequities that we saw.
The BeltLine has delivered on some goals, like bringing people together. The path typically records 2 million visits per year. And the project has also had an impact on the cost of housing. That's partly because land is becoming more expensive in Atlanta.
It became a public-private real estate project and a place to make money and to speculate instead of a place to provide transit and to provide public space.
Home values in Southwest Atlanta soared by more than 300% from 2013 to 2021, according to Dan Emmergluck.
The Southwest Atlanta story is kind of a heartbreaking story. A black neighborhood, low income, that had been disinvested, redlined. People had lived through that, their kids had lived through that, and then here comes the BeltLine raising values, but they're not able to benefit from it because they lost their homes in foreclosure. That resulted in a big shift in wealth away from working and middle-class families of color to private equity and Wall Street-backed investors. So I think that was a deleterious transition.
As the city got more expensive and rents went up, myself and other families like me, tended to move towards south of the city, where the prices were a little more affordable at that time. They're not that affordable anymore.
Since then, groups like the Atlanta Land Trust formed, with the goal of stabilizing at-risk people in the community.
So today, we are to some extent playing catch-up. And it would have been great if we had an opportunity to secure more land earlier in the life of the BeltLine, because property values continue to increase in close proximity to the project.
In the land trust model, homeowners purchase the structure and sign a lease for the land. As the value of the land rises, the group uses the profits to support low-income buyers.
I was actually the first recipient of a land trust home with the Atlanta Land Trust. And with that program, we were able to afford, a home. It really reduced the price of a home.
Makisha Roby, a former teacher, says owning her home has provided the stability to pursue a career as an entrepreneur. Atlanta, like many other cities, has tried to encourage land developers to build more affordable housing, with limited success. Locals say more can be done. For example, the city could make inclusive zoning mandatory. It could also tax commercial properties more to pay for better city services.
We don't have the perfect answer yet, but there are a number of institutions here that are working on it, including the BeltLine.
Atlanta feels this responsibility to really make sure that we retain this culture. If we wash that out, we could be any other city.
The leaders of Metro Atlanta expect to welcome more jobs and people in the coming years.
If we are intentional about how we grow and grow in places where the infrastructure already exists, it will allow for us to provide better services to all of those citizens, particularly as it relates to public transportation.
Atlanta has some of the worst traffic in the world. A regional transit system would connect low-wealth communities to opportunities on the north side. The challenge is that the north side has constantly pushed back against MARTA.
If you walk around the city, the state of the sidewalks in the city is horrendous. It's one of the worst cities for biking. These are all things that growth in the city's land values should have benefited and haven't. And yet the city is constantly talking about being in a state of austerity, not being able to hire policemen. The schools are constantly in budget constraints. It doesn't make sense.
This perpetual lack of investment builds upon wider racial gaps in Atlanta, measured in both income and assets.
We cannot address issues of income inequality or economic immobility if we do not focus on the Southeast. Think about the top cities that constantly get cited for these challenges: Atlanta, New Orleans, Miami. We see that they're significantly pronounced in the Southeast.
Despite these concerns, which afflict cities around the country, Atlanta is moving forward with confidence.
We certainly are experiencing those inflationary pressures that are here, but we have so many other assets that balance that out.
One of the things that we have stood up is a BeltLine marketplace. If you're a small business, if you can just convert just a small percentage of that foot traffic, you're going to do well.
There's some areas of the city that really haven't been looked at for a while, so it's good to see sidewalks being built, like green spaces being built. That really, that is really helpful